So it's developed as breast cancer, and now we help people with any cancer. Everyone can come for free. We do lots of holistic sessions. Normally this is set up as a dojo. So everything from sound massage, meditation, yoga. We do lots of different workshops, so anyone with any cancer can come. We take juices and plant-based foods to local hospitals. We do non-toxic gift packs. Mainly we have secondary cancer patients that come here. Kevin and I set up Libra, the app, web app. Basically, lots of cancer patients were getting late diagnosis, so stage 4. One lady was told she was an emotional teenager when she had a brain tumour. So Libra is really to do lots of research. We're working with lots of research teams, King's College Hospital, to really reduce the biases for women and people of colour, and really start to make a change in the healthcare system. Libra is also empowering you, so eventually it's brand new the app, but eventually you'll be able to take control of your own health data. When I was going through cancer, I wasn't allowed any of my data. I was given a file to take from one department to the other that was sealed. I cut it open and got told off. I had to apply for my medical data, which took a year. So Libra empowers you to take control of your own data. No one else gets access but you. So yeah, thanks for coming today. If anyone has any questions afterwards, or you know someone with cancer, you've had cancer, but if you know anyone else that wants to come to these sessions, you can come unlimited amounts, and it doesn't matter if you had cancer 20 years ago or whatever. It's free for everybody. So thank you.
Hi, thank you Florence, thank you Jane and Kevin for this lovely event and for inviting me. My name is Silke Hofmann. I'm here to speak about selected parts of my practice-based PhD research at the Royal College of Art and the Helen Hamlin Center for Design, which I completed in 2025. My thesis is titled Needs-Based Clothing Design, Exploring Breast Support Clothing, focused on wearer expertise in the context of breast cancer. The research focuses on people who live with differently sized breasts or one breast, as well as those who live flat after mastectomy, meaning without breast, but everybody knows that here, I think. And who neither choose breast reconstruction nor wear external breast prosthesis all the time, and whose needs may not be met by the range of post-mastectomy bras currently available. Today I will highlight the parts of the PhD that may be most relevant to this audience. The full thesis, including the wider data and general findings, can be downloaded via the link at the end of the talk. In this talk, I will focus on the participatory methods I use to place the wearer at the center of the design process and to develop alternative forms of breast support outside the context of conventional bras. If there's time remaining, I can also speak briefly about breast anatomy and physiology, at least the stuff that I kind of dove into in my research. I myself am not affected by breast cancer. The starting point for this research was a conversation with my friend Jakobe, who you see in the picture with me. This is recently at the Munich Crafts Fair, where I was invited to exhibit my research. Jakobe consulted me in my capacity as a clothing designer. After her treatment, she had been sent to a medical supply shop to be fitted for an external breast prosthesis and a post-mastectomy bra. She described this as one of the most distressing moments of her breast cancer experience. She wanted to explore whether to create her own bras and clothing line that would respond more closely to her needs and to the needs of others affected by breast cancer. As we began to discuss this, I realized that my knowledge as a clothing designer was limited in relation to breast support needs in the context of breast cancer, and that my usual design process did not serve me in this case for the lack of information on needs. I did not want to simply generate design ideas from my own assumptions and felt that I needed to understand more directly how people affected by breast cancer articulate their breast support needs and how these needs might be translated into clothing design processes. This interest became the starting point of my PhD research. So I apologize that this is not very readable, but if you download the PhD, then you can see very clearly, and I explain what you see there. After this realization that I needed more information, I looked more closely at the design process I had learned through my work in the fashion industry. I mapped the connections between the different people involved in the ready-to-wear development process. What became visible was that there are many points of communication between designers, product developers, buyers, technicians, manufacturers, and other stakeholders. So basically, if this goes down the prototyping process for the sample production, everybody who's involved in whatever capacity, on the left are the people, basically, the jobs, and on the right are the what they are doing and how they are kind of at what stage of the design process they're connecting with each other. Oops. But there's very little direct contact between the designer who's on the top and the consumer who's on the bottom there. Especially at the stage where garment type, fit, comfort, and support are developed and decided. This helped me to understand that the lack of knowledge about wearers' needs, in this case specifically breast support needs, was built into the design process I had been trained in. The absence of a direct connection to the wearer made it clear why I did not know how to access this information and why I could not design adequately for needs that had not yet been made visible to me. I set out to ask, how do people affected by breast cancer articulate their breast support needs, and how can these needs be translated into clothing design processes? I also wanted to understand how I, as a designer, could become an ally to wearers. To explore these questions, I developed the participatory clothing design session method that is derived from a specific stage of the conventional clothing design process, as practiced in the seasonal production cycles of the manufacturing ready-to-wear industry, the transition from a two-dimensional design to a three-dimensional prototype. And again, this is the second stage there that is meant by this moment where the two-dimensional sketch becomes the three-dimensional prototype. In the clothing industry, at this stage, a neutral sample garment, a prototype, a proto, is marked, shaped, and refined directly on the body. I translated this logic into an accessible participatory format so that participants could creatively log their clothing needs in an adapted way to how design teams work during the stages where garment type, fit, comfort, and support are developed and decided. The method therefore draws directly on my own background as a clothing designer in the ready-to-wear industry, but within the PhD, I turned this professional experience into an intentional research strategy. The aim was to explore how consumer voices could become an integrated part of the design process, rather than something that remains distant from it. As, in this way, designers could read the participants' prototypes in a similar way to how they read the prototypes they develop within the conventional design process. To borrow from these prototyping methods and to adapt simplify them, I developed a simple adjustable vest shape, which I named the paper proto. You can see that in the bottom left image. It became the main tool of the participatory clothing design session method, a three-dimensional canvas that participants could use to express breast support needs and design ideas directly on the body. For this, I needed a material that was approachable and easy to use for people with different levels of dexterity. I therefore explored soft Japanese paper materials, as these were most likely to combine cloth-like and paper-like qualities. The specific washi had been soft. The specific washi had to be soft and strong enough to wear, but also suitable for writing, drawing, cutting, folding, and gluing. During a 3-month field research period as a visiting researcher at the Kyoto Institute of Technology, I investigated different types of Japanese washi as textile materials. I looked at industrially produced washi, ceremonial paper garments, historic paper garments, and designer examples, including work by Issey Miyake. Through local research contacts, I visited the workshop of Iwano Ibichi, a living national treasure and master washi maker. That is him right there with me, if you looks a little blurry, but he introduced me to a specific washi used for cleaning samurai blades, which he recommended. This material was soft, strong, and made entirely from plant fibers. It became the basis for the paper proto. And I brought a sheet you can kind of tuck a little bit. It rips at one point, but it's quite sturdy because the fibers are very long. You can kind of fit around.
Sil, can I suggest that you turn around a little bit because at the back it's so hard to hear you?
I'm so sorry. Yes, sure. Should I speak louder?
It's just more space, facing this
Thank you.
Just interrupt me, also if you get bored. Okay, where was I? Sorry. I then developed a structured session format and is that better? Yes. I then developed a structured session format and reduced the session materials to a small, simple tool set through several pre-tests. I let the participants guide the session and learn from them what works and what didn't work. The final tool set included pens for writing and drawing, scissors for shaping necklines and armholes or hems, and decorative washi tape to indicate lace or other details. Each participant had their own paper proto tool set, a mirror so they could work independently and directly with their own body. It became clear that in places that were difficult to reach, particularly in the back, participants assisted each other. As shown in the pre-test 1 video I showed earlier, the assisting participant carefully followed the wearer's instruction, and both participants used their mirrors to check and correct the placement for the lines. For me, this became a meaningful analogy for how designers can become allies by following the wearer's lead and supporting them in responding to their own needs. The session concluded after participants removed their paper protos to write additional instructions onto the flattened wedge. After several pre-tests with people affected by breast cancer, either individually or in pairs, I had the opportunity to facilitate a session with 6 participants at Anna Ono, who would just listen to Dana. Anna Ono is a company specialized in bras for different breast shapes and different types of surgery after breast cancer. Dana said that better, of course. Its founder, Dana Donofrio, had the unique experience of being affected by breast cancer as a young person while also having a professional training and expertise as a fashion designer, which allowed her to develop a breast support clothing brand informed by her own situation. This was the first time I facilitated the formalized participatory clothing design session method with a larger group. One interesting and unexpected development was that several participants began to embellish their flat paper protos. They used decorative washi tape and stencils and added color and to indicate lace placements or other designs. They also made specific aesthetics choices around color, textile material, and surface qualities. While textile material preferences had already appeared in earlier pre-tests, they became much more concrete in this community session. As participants worked, they also began to present their designs to one another, pointing to specific needs on their paper protos and discussing their ideas. The 2-hour session ended as the earlier pre-test had done, with everybody gathering around the central table, sharing food and drink. Food and drink had also always been an important connector during intense fashion show preparations and clothing design processes, and I therefore incorporated this element into each session.
It's gone.
No, yeah, I'm going to click it to the next slide in a second. Sorry. I therefore incorporated this element into each session as a way of creating a more informal and shared atmosphere. These are the 6 paper photos from the Anna Ono session. I have brought 2 of them with me today and I will pass them around. Please handle them carefully, but feel free to look at them closely and turn them around to see the back as well. In returning to the question of allyship, the participatory clothing design session became an important learning process. At first, I thought the paper proto could act as the main communication tool between participant and designer, but the session showed that needs were communicated in many different ways, through drawing, writing, speaking, gesture, and body language. The paper protos were valuable because they recorded where and how clothing needs occurred on the body in a tangible and comparable form. But the conversation around them added another layer. They revealed emotional experiences, background stories, and tacit needs that were not always visible on the prototypes themselves. For me, this showed that allyship in design is about listening to and observing carefully all the ways in which needs are expressed. My conclusion from the method development to date is that the participatory clothing design session can create a space where participants can articulate their clothing needs without requiring specialist design knowledge. It also positions them as experts in their own wearing experience. I draw an analogy here to medical practices such as Rita Sharon's narrative medicine approach. Naron addresses the silence between medical practitioners and patients in clinical settings by focusing on individual stories. She describes a metaphorical clearing, like an opening in the woods, of storytelling, so a clearing of storytelling, formed by all those involved in illness, as a gathering place in which to listen to the narratives of those affected. She argues that medicine's role is to donate its experience to an act of fidelity, meaning to stand by those affected by illness and enduring alliance. She also suggests that beyond medicine, anyone in any field has the chance to make this kind of contact. This view resonates with me in the context of clothing design. So this is also not legible, but I just wanted to click through it and kind of allude to the PhD that in which you can read up, and everybody who's a maker, maybe you find this useful. This is the recorded list of all clothing needs collected during my PhD research from people affected by breast cancer, including how and where these needs occur on the body. With this information and, no, it's okay. With this information and by acquiring 3 larger successive funding schemes, I then approached this question of how clothing wearer needs might be translated into clothing design processes. I called these iterative breast support developments Embrace 1, 2, and 3, drawing on a statement by Albert Elbaz that he wished to embrace wearers through his clothing designs. From my session's findings and the records list of breast support needs, I noticed how varied and diverse these needs were. Although there were clear overlaps, the needs were also highly specific to each individual, their body, and their social environment. I therefore decided to test a modular approach to breast support with the additive production method of industrial knitting design. Embrace 1 was the initial development of this method. My focus in this iteration was to test the basic design idea for a modular breast support clothing concept that could respond to diverse breast support needs, specifically individual breast and chest support across a range of breast sizes, from a flat chest to a single breast. The idea was to differently sized breasts. The idea was that a base pattern would act as a shared framework holding the full range of all collected needs. Individual parts could then be selected from it, and garments could be knitted from this pattern according to those specific needs. These are some examples of garment ideas I extracted from the base pattern based on specific individuals' needs. The Embrace 1 iteration was very technical, and it focused on establishing the knitting process. For this reason, I did not yet collaborate directly with the wearer during the design process. However, I organized a professional fashion type photo production, which was later featured in German Vogue online. during which I realized that it would be important to include wearers directly in the design process as well, alongside the information I had already collected through the participatory clothing design session. And here you can see also some variation of this base garment that we knitted. Um, Although the proof of concept was established, Embrace One still showed some breast droop in 4 body positions. This demonstrated that although the garment was close-fitting and tight and knitted with an additional elastan yarn to create a comfortable body-hugging feeling, this was not yet an ideal solution for supporting breasts. This limitation would become even more apparent with larger breast sizes. Embrace 2 was the second modular breast support prototype developed within this research practice. My idea was to alter the textile properties of specific areas of the prototype, making them more robust and an effect of at certain points. And I'm going to little swatches. This is the 3D body scan of the participant's torso. So this is not Embrace 2. And you can kind of just pull them a little bit and see how the rigid parts, how they lock the knitted structure, hence kind of giving a very precise and deliberate hold to the stretch in particular places. Based on a BD3 scan, and this is it, I had an algorithm developed that responded to the individual's body's morphology and surface structure. Prototyping process, this was then adjusted according to my comments and the wearer's feedback. In this video, you can see the translation from the paper prototypes into the Embrace One version based on specific individuals' breast support needs. You can then see the move into the participants' chosen Embrace 2 design with its individualized support structure. This process follows the logic of the analog clothing design process but translates it into a digital design and prototyping workflow. So while this is playing, I'm just saying this again, so we did our entire fitting with the person that was our wearer as an expert wearer, analog, but at the same time we tried how it would manage to be digitalized and then maybe in future looking having these kind of workflows also digitally possible. So there's more, so wearers can actually be more involved in design processes if they can kind of decide on the computer or on a screen how they want their designs rather than having to go somewhere and having these decisions made in a design studio, for example. And this is another video showing the, why is it not playing? This is well, you can see too much, but this is another video showing these individual placed rigid tiles that were extracted, or the algorithm extracted these tiles from, that's Victoria, our participant, from her torso structure. So she, for example, if you saw that in the